Coach, thanks so much for taking the time, and it's been a lot of fun to be able to talk to some of the staff and talk to some of you guys, and it's great to speak with you as well. And I'm sorry we can't do it in person, but with all that's going on with health and safety and wellness, that's what's paramount here is social distancing, and so we want to abide by the mandates and the rules of leadership to try to settle this whole thing down as soon as possible.
Sure.
What do you think of your, I don't know of your personal timing of when you came here to the Palouse. When did you get here? This is the first time you and I have spoken. What's your process been like in trying to get a sense of what's going on with the O-line?
It's been good. I came in, I think it was January 17th.
Okay.
I flew in. They flew me right into Pullman. Did some paper. That was a Friday. Saturday, did some paperwork. Sunday, headed out recruiting.
Right at it.
Yeah, right at it. But it's been good, and before we needed to go to our social distancing, we had some workouts, and I got to see the guys somewhat, meet with them a little bit, and it's really a good group of young men.
I was going to ask you, what were your initial impressions?
Initial impressions are they are big. They've done a nice job of recruiting here as far as classes and that kind of thing. And they're good young men that they just want to please, and they're working hard. They want to win, and so they've done a nice job so far, and they're doing a nice job in this distancing time.
This is your third stint in the Pac. You went to the Rose Bowl with UCLA. You were at the Ag School of the Pacific Northwest. Other than Washington State, you were with Oregon State. What are your recollections of the Pac-10? And since you've been in the Mountain West and now coming back into the Pac-12, what are your observations and thoughts of the current state of the Pac and as you know it, and what the Cougs need to do to get wins?
Well, I think that that's a good question. And first I want to say I'm excited as anything to be back in the Pac-12 at Washington State. This is a unique place. It's a great town from everything I've seen so far. Love being in a smaller town with a Power 5 school, Pac-12 school is awesome. The people here have been great and very passionate. The fans they seem very passionate about our team. And it's, I think the Pac-12 is really good from top to bottom. I think teams are getting better. We played a couple of teams last year that I think as the season went on, they got better and better. And I think it's very competitive. I think that, but we can be very competitive. Now, I haven't had a chance to see our guys yet and that kind of thing, but I know they're good young men. We have good talent. We just need to come out as soon as they allow us to get going, working hard and just keep competing hard at a high level, and we'll be good. The offense, the defense, special teams will be very sound and very good.
When you were with the Beavers, it was the late 80s. When you were with the Bruins, it was, about 5-10 years after that, give or take?
The late 90s, mid to late 90s. I was there from 97 to 03.
Right. So over the last 20 years or so, 25, 30 years, how much has O-line play evolved? Has it remained relatively the same?
O-line play remains relatively the same from the standpoint of blocking and the use of hands and work and targeting and those things. Where things have changed is we're not packing people in there and have a fullback and tight ends and getting all those bodies in there anymore. Not many people are. So the offenses have changed some, but the blocking and the techniques and that have not changed that much.
I've asked every position coach this, but for the offensive line, maybe more than any other, it is pertinent. What's the learning curve for the offensive line group from the air raid to the run and shoot?
Well, I think for the offensive line group, there will be some learning curve, because the biggest thing, the question I've gotten is about the sets, the splits and the sets. Do you still take big splits? And we will take big splits at times. I don't know if it'll be what they've seen in the past here, but we'll take big splits and we'll vary it. We give the guys a little bit of leeway with that according to what we're doing. But the sets are what will be different, because I've also heard, are you going to do those big vertical sets where they kick straight back? And we don't do that. And we're actually, part of the protection is very aggressive, firm sets, jump sets, as people know. And so it takes a very athletic guy and to do those things. But we have some guys they'll be fine. And they are actually, the little bit we've gotten to do, they're transitioning well and figuring it out. It'll just take some reps to get it done.
I want to make sure. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I want to make sure I get the terminology right, the semantics of it. By splits, you mean the distance between the tackle and the guard, and then the guard and the center, and then by with regard to everything else you said, you're talking about real technique in terms of dropping back once the snap comes, right?
Correct. Yes. So that's what will look different, because in the past, in the air raid, the offensive linemen have gotten straight back very deep. We don't get back as deep. As a matter of fact, half of the protection is very aggressive. One side of it.
I know you've coached some special guys at Fresno State, at UCLA. When do you know? It's because a lot of Coug fans have seen a guy like Andre Dillard or Abe Lucas. Abe put on 60 pounds in his first 2 years. He was a red shirt, put on 30, and then he put on another 30, and he's done an incredible job in growing. But it's hard to know as a fan, as an observer. The fan will look at it and say, I don't even recognize that kid. But can you tell as a coach that this could be a special lineman?
Yes, you could tell by the way they move and bend, and just there's a certain smoothness and there's a certain fluidity to their movement, and so you might take an Abe Lucas and say, man, if he puts the weight on, he's going to be really, really good.
How do you know? How do you know if he can put the weight on when you're recruiting and when you're talking to the kids?
Well, it just depends. You kind of got to look at their shoulders and look at them and see if they've got the build that they'll be able to put the weight on, and most of the time you could tell, but a little bit of it's going to be a guessing game to see, check out mom and dad and see if genetically they could grow.
Whenever I'm on the broadcast, so the analyst is Alex Brink, one of the all-time leading passers in Coug history, and he and I in breaks sometimes will joke, there's no stats, and there are 5 of them, and they're talked about like there's one unit. It's the O-line. Yeah. And the guy that would be at the running back or quarterback or receiver, the ball carrier, gets the glory and the credit. And this is as cliche and old as it gets in football, but the least credited and most deserving unit in sport might be the offensive line. And yet the personalities always seem to cater to almost relishing that and being kind of behind the scenes.
That's what it is. That's what makes it so great coaching those guys. I mean, I played offensive line. I was a little offensive lineman, but I loved it. I played it. We're protectors. That's what we do. Our job is to make someone else look good. But those are the personalities you get to coach. And so it makes it really fun to have those guys in the room, and they don't care. We have our own little stats. They're not official, but we'll have our own little stats in our room, and the guys will get excited about those. And they're just guys that, and they do, I love it that you talk about the O-line as just the O-line, because all positions I think are this way, but the offensive line more so than any other position, they got to play all 5 as one. And if we're playing 5 guys out there and they're like 5 guys, individuals, we're going to be in trouble, so that's kind of the nature of the position.
You played O-line at Idaho State, is that right?
I played O-line. I played in junior college, LA Valley Junior College.
Okay.
I played at Cal Lutheran.
Cal Lutheran. Okay.
I graduated from Cal Lutheran and played at Cal Lutheran.
And what was your experience there like? And what's your path been through decades of coaching?
You know, it's been interesting. That's a great question. In junior college, I had some great coaches. My position coach was Pat Hill, who coached at Fresno State for 15 years, was the head coach. Great offensive line coach and a great man. My high school offensive line coach was a fellow by the name of Bill Lake in the San Fernando Valley, Van Nuys High. When I first played for him, I said, I want to be a football coach. Then I went to the junior college. I played for Pat Hill. I said, I want to be a college football coach. It's all I ever wanted to do. And so the path has been interesting. It's different now, I think. I mean, I've coached junior college. I GA'd at Idaho State in Pocatello,
Okay.
where we won a national championship, 1AA at the time, national championship. Some great players there. Played on that team in GA, Marvin Lewis, Dirk Cutter. They played on that team and GA'd with me on that team.
So that's what I was wondering. Idaho State has an incredible coaching tree, and I knew you had some time with the Bengals, and so it's interesting that you were with both Marvin Lewis and Dirk Cutter there for a bit.
Yeah, and the head coach was Dave Craigthorpe, who's a wonderful man and one of my mentors in coaching also. And so from there, I got my first full-time job at Snow Junior College. And it was awesome. I was excited. Little town, 1,500 people in town when school's in session, but I loved it. And then went on and coached at small colleges and worked my way up. And then finally got my dream job at the time at UCLA, because I grew up in the San Fernando Valley and got there. And it was good. It was good times. I would never want to live back in Southern California.
You wouldn't?
No, I got family there, but this is more me. My wife is from Pocatello. She loves small town, and she loves it here in Pullman.
That's great.
So it's been a good path. I've been fortunate to be at some great places.
Oh, it's an amazing resume. I mean, it's UCLA and Oregon State and BYU and Fresno State and Idaho State in its heyday. And it is, and it's a pleasure talking to you. I could do this. We could go on forever, but I'm sensitive to, and there actually is work to do. And so we'll leave you to it, but I can't wait to do it in person and be safe and be healthy and well. And thank you for this time. It's really a pleasure to meet you, albeit remotely.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me. And I look forward to meeting you too in person.